Thank you very much, Mrs. Flor, for this very comprehensive overview of the relations, issues, and challenges facing Eastern Europe and relations with Russia. I'm sure that there will be questions addressed to you at a later stage, but I propose to give the floor to Mr. Semneby now as the second keynote speaker, and then take the questions after his speech. So, Mr. Semneby, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's not very easy to give another presentation after Patricia's very comprehensive overview of our relations with the East and the East-West dialogue. But let me develop on some of the points that she has touched upon in her presentation. I will cover the entire Eastern neighborhood, but obviously with particular focus on the South Caucasus, since I'm responsible for that region, and within that region, mostly dealing with the unresolved conflicts. Now, there are several ways one can look at our Eastern neighborhood. One can look at it, and I think many ways that are not better or not worse than another. One can look at it first of all as a region of instability and unpredictability, permanent crisis region. There are strong reasons for having this view. There are unresolved conflicts, many of them in the region, both separatist conflicts and bilateral interstate conflicts that pose a threat to the stability of the region. And it's also a region where there are clear problems in consolidating the democratic governance. In many of the countries we either have authoritarian governments or we have in others recurring political crises that make everybody nervous from time to time. The other way of looking at it is as a region of opportunity. This is now the remaining region in Europe that remains to be fixed after, I would say, a very successful run that we have had in many other parts of Europe. This is the region where we can ultimately make sure that everybody in Europe feels, depending on what we do, we can make sure that everybody feels secure, that we remove obstacles to interaction, movement, and that we can charter the way for prosperity for everybody. It therefore goes without saying that the European Union has high stakes and many interests in this region. We need to remain committed and engaged. We have security interests. Anything that happens here has a direct impact on the EU. We have an interest in maintaining transportation routes through the region. It's also a zone of potential friction with Russia that we have to make sure that it's handled in a way that it doesn't grow into bigger problems. It's also a region, I would say, where the credibility of the European Union as a security actor, also as a global actor, is at stake. Around the world, I think many of our partners will look at us against the background of how we manage to deal with our immediate neighborhood. It's also important for us because we care. I think we can say that after so many years and now decades of fairly close interaction with these countries, and after the enlargements, latest enlargements of the European Union, we have many personal historical ties that are important indeed, and that demonstrate that we belong together. As far as the leverage and impact of the EU in this area is concerned, I would mention first of all the freedom of movement, both of people and of goods and services. This is what I think is of interest primarily to our partners, and by being and depending on the way that we handle this, we will also have an impact on developments. The EU also has leverage and impact as a provider of security. In many different ways, we can provide security on the ground. For example, in Georgia, we have the EU monitoring mission. We can also provide security indirectly through a closer institutional relationship that gives reassurance to the countries in the region, and also for us a better understanding of the predicament that they're in, the situation that they're in. We can also provide security through targeted efforts towards conflict transformation and conflict resolution. We have done a bit of this in Moldova, in Georgia, but the Georgia case also showed that we were late in realizing the needs, and there's clearly more to be done, not least on the conflict where we've not been active, that is for various reasons, that is Nagorno-Karabakh. As far as our leverage and impact is concerned, we also have leverage and impact as a framework to provide regional coherence. I would mention on a very general level here that the EU can help in building a new common identity among the countries in this region. A layer of European identity in addition to the national identities. We can provide regional coherence by making the countries move in the same direction, by aligning their reform agendas and strategic objectives. We can assist regional coherence by facilitating contacts of the countries in the region with their regional neighbors, both people-to-people contacts and more institutional ones. Now, and there are some very down-to-earth ways that we can facilitate these contacts. I would say one way would be to help rehabilitate communications links in all directions, east-west, which is a primary interest to us, but also north-south. This, more than anything else, I believe, will create true joint interest and benefits, and will therefore also contribute to resolving the more intractable political issues that we're facing. Now, on the conflicts, I mentioned Nagorno-Karabakh as the one where the need is the greatest for us to act. The increased commitment of the EU in the region in the context of the Eastern Partnership and in other ways suggests that the EU could and is expected indeed to play a more assertive role. We can have an impact here in many ways. We can help prepare societies and public opinions for the necessary concessions. We can explain the benefits of a settlement. We can break the kind of siege mentality that we have in Nagorno-Karabakh by a judicious engagement policy along the lines of what we're actually doing in Georgia, and I'll come back to that in a moment. We can assist in dealing with practical issues on the ground, anything from water management and things like that. We can provide political and practical support for a stronger ceasefire regime. I remind you that this is an unregulated ceasefire, very dangerous. This could include more resources for observation of the ceasefire, for example, and we can also prepare our contributions to follow after a settlement, including reconstruction assistance and securing the settlement on the ground. The situation regarding Karabakh has, if anything, become more complex after the I hope temporary failure of the Turkish-Armenian normalization process. There are many reasons why this process failed and why it started to interfere with the Nagorno-Karabakh peace process that I will not go into here. We can discuss that later on. But what all this demonstrates is a need for us and other partners of the region to deal with the issues at stake here at the regional level and not in isolation. Only by enlarging the picture framework can the EU and the countries in the region be able to can we help the countries in the region to address these issues.